You think you already know how this story ends. You think the exits, the interviews, and the public statements were the final chapter. But what is happening right now behind closed doors tells a very different story. This is not about a breakup. This is about control slipping, fear taking over, and a power shift no one was prepared for. While one person is quietly rebuilding, another is struggling to accept that the past no longer belongs to him. Stay with us, because what we are about to uncover changes everything. You think you understand the story of Cody Brown because you have watched the seasons, you have heard the interviews, you have seen the arguments and the emotional exits. But what is unfolding now is something entirely different, something quieter, more unsettling, and far more revealing. Because this is not about what he is saying publicly, it is about what he is struggling to accept privately. Sources close to the situation describe a man who is no longer reacting to loss, but panicking at the realization that control has slipped through his fingers for good. While Cody presents himself as composed and resolved in front of the world, there is a growing sense behind the scenes that he is grappling with a profound internal collapse. Because Janelle is not frozen in grief, she is not stuck in limbo. She is moving forward with clarity and confidence, and that reality has disrupted everything he thought he knew about his role in her life. For years, Janelle was the dependable constant, the one who held the structure together, the one who believed in practicality, patience, and long-term planning. She was never impulsive, never reactive, never driven by chaos. And because of that, Cody believed she would always remain tethered to the family orbit, even if the marriage shifted. What he did not anticipate was that her sense of logic would eventually lead her away from him entirely. Insiders say this shift has left him stunned, not because he did not expect separation, but because he expected permanence of influence. He expected that even apart, he would remain central to her decision-making and identity, and now that assumption has crumbled. Those close to the situation suggest that Cody is struggling most with the fact that Janelle is no longer engaging emotionally in the familiar patterns. There are no drawn-out confrontations, no repeated explanations, no attempts to win approval. She is simply choosing peace, and that silence has proven more destabilizing than conflict ever was. According to insider chatter, this emotional distance has triggered an obsessive need to reinterpret her choices through a lens that keeps him relevant. Instead of accepting that she is acting independently, he frames her actions as reactions to him, a narrative that allows him to remain the focal point, even in absence. When he speaks about her moving on, he allegedly does so with disbelief, not curiosity, as if her happiness must be explained rather than accepted. And that disbelief is where the tension begins to build, because it exposes a deeper truth. He never truly saw her as someone who would outgrow the dynamic they shared. Sources describe long conversations where he revisits old expectations, re-examines loyalty, and questions motives, not in search of understanding, but in search of reassurance that he still matters, that he was not simply left behind. This has reportedly led to moments of visible frustration as he attempts to rationalize her independence by attributing it to external factors rather than internal growth, because acknowledging her agency would require him to acknowledge his own failures, and that is a reckoning he appears unprepared to face. The narrative forming behind closed doors is one of disorientation, a man who built his identity around leadership, now watching someone step away from that structure without collapse. And that realization has created a quiet desperation, not fueled by anger alone, but by the fear of becoming irrelevant, the fear of being a chapter instead of the story. And as Janelle continues forward without seeking validation or permission, the gap between who he thought he was and who he now appears to be grows wider by the day. This is the beginning of a transformation, not just for her, but for him as well. And the tension created by that imbalance is setting the stage for a conflict that has yet to fully surface. because when one person evolves and the other resists, the past becomes a battleground and the future becomes uncertain. And this is only the first layer of a story that is far from finished. As the days pass and the distance becomes permanent, the situation grows heavier, not louder, because what insiders describe now is not explosive emotion, but sustained pressure, the kind that builds slowly when someone realizes that time is no longer on their side. Sources suggest that Cody is increasingly fixated on the consequences of Janelle's independence, not just emotionally, but structurally, because her departure was never just symbolic, it altered the balance of the entire family system. For years, Janelle represented stability, logic, and financial consistency. She was the one who understood how everything connected, and now that she is no longer operating within that shared framework, the foundation feels unstable. Those familiar with the situation say this realization has brought a new kind of anxiety, one rooted in uncertainty rather than anger, because without Janelle anchoring the practical side of the family, there is no longer a clear roadmap, and that lack of direction has reportedly intensified internal stress. According to insiders, Cody appears preoccupied with what might come next, not because he seeks closure, but because unresolved matters create vulnerability, and vulnerability threatens control. Conversations behind closed doors are said to circle endlessly around hypotheticals: what she might ask for, what she might revisit, what she might question. And this pattern suggests a man bracing for accountability rather than reconciliation. Those who know the family dynamic well point out that Janelle was never confrontational. She avoided unnecessary conflict and often prioritized harmony, even at her own expense. But now that she is no longer obligated to maintain that peace, her silence carries weight because it signals choice, not avoidance. And that distinction matters. Insiders believe this shift has created a psychological imbalance where one person is quietly rebuilding while the other is stuck anticipating fallout. And when anticipation replaces action, anxiety takes hold. It is also being said that this tension has begun to influence the atmosphere within the household, as conversations repeatedly return to the same themes: uncertainty, loss, and fear of exposure. Not in a dramatic sense, but in a practical one, because unanswered questions tend to grow louder the longer they remain unresolved, and what once felt manageable now feels fragile. The idea that Janelle could seek clarity on past decisions, shared responsibilities, or long-term arrangements. As this chapter continues to unfold, the most revealing element is not what is being said publicly, but what is happening internally. Because insiders describe a growing realization that the old strategies no longer work. The familiar patterns of authority, reaction, and emotional pressure no longer produce the outcomes they once did. And that realization is deeply unsettling for someone whose identity was built around being the center of the system. Sources suggest that Cody is now facing something he has rarely confronted before, which is the absence of influence. When Janelle no longer seeks approval, explanation, or engagement, the emotional feedback loop breaks. And without that loop, there is no validation, no resistance, and no reassurance that he still holds power. This silence is not passive, it is decisive. And that decisiveness appears to be what has shifted the ground beneath everything. Conversations are no longer driven by resolution, but by speculation, by anticipation, by fear of what clarity might uncover. Insiders believe that this is the phase where reflection becomes unavoidable, because without distraction, there is only accountability. And accountability requires acknowledgement of choices, patterns, and consequences that were long ignored. The idea that Janelle could redefine her future without reference to the past challenges the narrative that held everything together for decades. And when that narrative fractures, it exposes the fragility beneath it. Those close to the situation say there is an increasing sense of urgency, a feeling that time itself is now an adversary, because with each passing week, Janelle appears more grounded, more confident, and more detached from the conflict that once defined her role. And that steady forward motion contrasts sharply with the stagnation elsewhere, creating an imbalance that grows more visible by the day. This imbalance is not dramatic, but it is powerful, because it reveals where growth is happening and where it is not. Insiders describe a household caught in repetition, where conversations circle the same concerns without resolution, while elsewhere, new routines, new priorities, and new goals are quietly taking shape. This contrast highlights